Welcome, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's workshop. We are excited to have you here. Today's session will be led by our Director of International Sales, Dr. Melissa Cow.
Thank you, Druti, and welcome everyone. And thank you for joining us. I've now started sharing my screen. I hope you can see my screen now. So today we will be introducing a series of intelligent applications building on top of the FootfallCam V9 analytics platform. So these applications are purpose designed to bridge the gap between the data abundance and the business execution. So every day with our FootfallCam that you have installed, your stores are generating massive amount of rich data from your footfall to shopper behavior to the movement patterns to their engagement levels. So, and combine this with the external drivers like weather, your sales data, sales trends, your marketing campaigns, and operational policies on there. So you have a rich data on that already. But however, turning this data into actionable insights and a measurable financial impact is a non-trivial challenge for many of our retail customers. So that is where our suite of applications comes in. So each app is engineered with a specific use case in mind, codifying the best practices into repeatable work flows. So we're eliminating the guesswork and drastically reducing the time to impact. Yeah. So today we will begin with one of the most critical levers of profitability in retail, which is the staff planning. And the FootfallCam staff planning app is designed to help you match your labor supply with customer demand intelligently. So hour by hour, segment by segment. So using advanced multi-variable predictive analytics. So this isn't just about compliance or rostering. So it's about maximizing your sales conversion and customer experience while minimizing the wasted labor hours. So, and it's based on your real store data, not just like a industry standard or your best practices is not assumptions. So this not just gut feeling, not what I think my experience in and the intuition is actually based on your real store data. So let's explore how it works. So this is a series of workshop for that. Today we're introducing this suite of applications under our FootfallCam V9 platform. So each of them purpose built for the different stakeholders within the retail organization, so that you can make better operational decisions that is powered by data that was previously inaccessible and too complex to translate into action. But now you can do that. So these apps are designed so it's not only just to visualize the data, but to make it actionable. Yeah. And importantly, to make it usable by the exact job function that can most benefit them. So whether you're in the operation or you're in marketing, you're in planning, or executive leadership as well. So that's let me set the stage for what this is all about. Because the core problem in most retail organizations is not a lack of data, is that the data is fragmented, is buried in the back-end system, or it requires specialist knowledge to extract the value. And so even though FootfallCam collects an enormous amount of in-store data, including about how the shoppers behave, where they go, how long they stay, how your staff are deployed, what kinds of interactions happen. We provide all this data, still is often underutilized and the value is trapped within the system. So what we're doing now is building a structure, a structured way to release that value. So each of these apps we will showcase in this webinar series is designed to combine your in-store behavioral data with other key sources like your POS data, weather, event schedules like marketing, your staff roster, and third-party demographic data as well, so that you can simulate, test it, and then guide your decisions with the intelligence, not the guesses. Yeah. So let me walk you through the 5 apps. Today, we're going to focus on the staff planning app. and we're going to cover in detail today. So this app is built to help you answer the deceptively simple question: what is the right number of staff to schedule by the hour, by the store for next week? So instead of just using your historical sales data or your crude footfall figure, we're training the AI model on the actual buying intent groups, which we can detect using the FootfallCam's behavioral analytics. That means not just how many people enter, but how many groups that had real purchase potential, how long they stay there, and whether they were served. And for the first time, we're able to measure this unmet demand, who is customer who were willing to buy but walked away unserved. And this feedback loop powers a smarter and more scientific planning. So we'll talk in depth today, but I just want to briefly cover what other apps we have as well. And the first of this series is the location analysis app. This is for the strategy and expansion team. So when you want to do your store expansion, so it combines your store performance data with the local area demographic in your catchment area, your competitor location footprints, and third-party data sets to simulate the what if scenarios. So what if you open a new store in this area? What happens if you close the other one there? And will your customer then shift? Or will you cannibalize another outlet if you open another one there? So the AI learns from your existing network of stores and your customer flows in these stores to simulate the sales uplift, the impact to your nearby stores, and your competitors' gain or losses. Yeah, so this is very useful for that. Second is the marketing ROI app. Here, this one, we're giving your marketing team the tools to evaluate how different promotions and campaigns actually perform. So not just in terms of the uplift in sales and footfall, but also in terms of how customers behaved. So when you have this campaign, or when you have this certain promotion inside the shop, or when you have this bargain table in front of the shop. So this kind of thing, how did it impact the behavior? Did they linger longer? Did they browse the different zone? Did the high intent shoppers engage more? This because you show them something on the digital signage, things like this. So this app helps you move from a vague campaign reviews to quantify ROI, and even allows you to simulate future event impacts with the AI models trained on the historical data. So you can simulate with an AI model to say, what if I run this campaign on the Mother's Day instead of on a Valentine's Day, and things like this. So that will be very useful. The fourth one is a sales tracker app. It is designed to anticipate incoming traffic composition. So instead of reacting to the sales after they happen yesterday, we're helping you to forecast based on the behavioral history, what type of shopper will walk in over the next few hours or the next few days. Yeah. So we can predict, for example, that in this afternoon, you're going to have 30 buying groups that are likely to come in, and 10 of them are elderly couples with a high conversion potential. So with this knowledge, your team, your store team, can tailor their approach, and you can position the staff accordingly, preparing the merchandising in advance. So this is not just forecasting the volume, it is anticipating the intent. So making the store staff being able to anticipate that, and obviously by then doing more proactive sales to get a higher conversion, obviously. Now, finally, we will introduce the store layout simulation app, and this is where it gets deep. This app is trained on millions or even billions of your customer path data point. Yeah. So how your customer move inside your store. It learns what people do in your store under different conditions. The conditions could be the weather, your store size, time of the day, your customer type, your store layout, all those. And it then creates a predictive model for how different layout or signage or merchandising changes would impact the engagement. So, and And it allows your team to benchmark not what just happened, but what should have happened or what could happen if you have plan A or plan B or plan C, plan D. Yeah. So this is invaluable for the visual merchandiser, for store planner, and for executives reviewing the effectiveness of your physical retail space. But today, in today's session, we're going to focus on the staff planning app for that. So we'll walk you through how this works, how it integrates with your workforce management system, your WFM, and how the AI model is trained on your own store data. Yeah, so we are able to simulate the staffing scenario. So this isn't just about fancy graphs or theoretical AI. It's about what you do in your store next week with your team, your customers, and your constraints. Yeah. So let's get started. So now let's talk about the people who will actually be using the app, which is your staff planner. So now in most retail chains, especially the larger ones with dozens or hundreds, if not thousands of locations, the weekly roster doesn't magically appear. Someone has to create it. And sometimes it is a full-time staff planner at the headquarters, but more often it could fall to the regional manager or even the store managers themselves. And let's be honest, it is an incredibly hard task. It's not just about ticking boxes or just filling the time slot by this member of staff. The real challenge is, what do you benchmark against? What is the right number of staff? How do you gauge that? So what's the right number of staff to put in for each hour of each day, store by store? Which one, with each one of them having different trading patterns, different local behaviors, and different staff constraints. So there is no perfect answer, and yet everyone's looking at you for one. Staffing is one of the largest cost lines in retail. We all know, because that's where all your cost is. So the pressure is real. So every decision you make has a financial impact. And the problem is, no matter how well you plan, someone's always going to complain. If the store feels busy and the regional managers just happen to walk in and they're going to say, "Oh, you're understaffed," or if the payroll runs high that week, and then you will say, "Oh, wow, we're overstaffed. How come you're spending so much?" And if the sales don't go up because of that, then of course, then they're going to ask you, why did we increase the headcount if the sales not going up? So it's almost like a no-win situation, especially if you don't have the data to back it up. Yeah, you're stuck between competing forces, and the store team needs more support. If you're understaffed, the finance teams wants tighter cost control, and the upper management just wants to see ROI. So, but the truth is, without a way to properly to measure the demand, the intent, and the service coverage, everyone is planning blind. And that's exactly why we built this app, because this just isn't just about making the planner's life easier. It is about putting science and accountability into a process that until now has been just mostly guesswork. So it's about giving staff planners the real tools to justify their plans, to measure what worked and what didn't, and to continuously improve on it. Yeah. So it's based on evidence, not just gut feeling. So now let's look at what really happens on the ground when supply doesn't meet demand. Yeah. So for example, let's have a look at this. So now this is a store where we're measuring the staff, we're measuring the people who come in. So we're talking about moments when genuine customers are in the store, they're ready to buy, but no one's available to serve them. It's not because the store isn't staffed, but because all the available staff are already occupied. They're busy attending to some customers, and meanwhile, new opportunity walk in, and they may just walk right out. So, for example, here is a jewelry store, and this is another example where you're actually very quiet and you have abundance of staff. So of course, then you have new customer come in, then you have one staff to be able to serve them immediately, but you just still have one staff extra. So this is an overstaffed situation. And in a jewelry store, if on the other case, where staff can be one customer can occupy a staff for 10, 20 minutes. And if someone else walk in during that time, no one's available, then that second customer might just leave without ever engaging. Or in a convenience store, like a news agent, like 7-Eleven, is a different kind of urgency, or a cafe, different kind of urgency. People want to be served fast. And from here, we are actually looking at, so this one actually let you visualize how many people are actually in the store in real time. So now it's very quiet, but they need to be served fast. So if the queue builds up, they will leave. They don't come back again, and you're losing sale that could have happened if you were staffed properly. Or think about, so at the moment it's quiet, but think about when you're actually in a museum or an airport, when the queue is actually building up. And they build up fast. This is a spike in the footfall, and they're directly tied to obviously service speed at the counters. So if you don't scale up staff availability when those spikes hits, the customer is going to queue up, they get frustrated, and they either leave or spend less. This is the essence of unmet demands. For that. So when your store has the potential to serve more, sell more, and deliver more, but the staffing isn't there at the right time. And as we just show just now as well, the opposite is just as problematic. You have too many staff. Sometimes it's just dead quiet. You've got a full coverage, but no customer to serve. And that's just wasted cost. So the real challenge here isn't just staffing enough, is staffing right. Distributing the staff across the time intelligently. And that is what this app, the staff planning app, is built to solve. Because as we all know, bad planning means missed sales, and bad planning also means frustrated customer, and bad planning also means wasted payroll, so costs. And this is why staff planning really matters. And because it's not just about cutting costs, it's also about unlocking revenue that has already walked into your store. Yeah. So let's talk about the 4 stages. Let's step back and look at this full cycle of staff planning. So there are 4 stages. So from the prediction, you're predicting you're estimating how many shoppers will walk in next week, and you predict how many staff you need. And then to the actual planning, so plan, on your staff roster, you need to consider their availability and any local law or any scheduling constraints. So you need to plan that. And then actually on that day, how many actual staff turn up? So who turn up, who didn't turn up, what is the coverage do you actually have on the store? And then the ideal is a hindsight. So retrospectively, if you look back on that day, oh, you should have had that number of staff there. If you knew what could have happened, what demand would materialize, and how your team actually perform. But now here's the reality. Most retailers do stage 2 and stage 3 pretty well. They plan, they roster, they operate. But the stage 1, the prediction, is largely based on gut feeling or sales record. Yeah, the sales data. And that's a serious problem. Let me explain why. Because sales data only reflects what was successfully transacted, your fulfilled demands. But what about everything else that was missed? The people who came in but couldn't find a staff member, who didn't get served, and they simply walked away. So those are your unmet demands, and they're invisible in your sales number. So if you rely on sales alone to forecast your staffing needs, you're almost flying blind. And maybe you say, what about footfall? So I'm counting footfall on this at the store. So yes, footfall can tell you how many people enter your store, but it doesn't tell you who they were, and were they serious buyer, or are they just coming here to browse? Were they school run parents at 3 o'clock in the afternoon looking for time to kill? Or are they high intent buyers that actually come here with a clear purpose, and they need to get served and they will buy? So you don't want to overstaff for the wrong crowd. So for example, you don't want to overstaff for 3 p.m. because those are just school run parents who's going to come here, just kill time, and they rarely buy. So because if you overstaff for the wrong crowd, it's just wasted cost. So what you need is to predict based on the genuine buying groups and those with intent and the potential to convert. And that's what FootfallCam can give you. We don't just count people, we classify them based on their movement path, their engagement patterns, their past conversion behavior, and demographic modeling. And we use that to accurately forecast your staffing needs for the next week. And then once that week is over, we close the loop. So we use the data we collected in real time on that day that has passed to assess, were you actually overstaffed or understaffed? What was the opportunity loss from unmet demand? And where did you overspend? What could have been done better? And here is the key difference. All of these feedback will feed back into the AI model so that it learns, it improves, and it adjusts your next round of prediction. So you don't have to need to remember every nuance of every store, every shift, every season. And that's what the machine is for. Yeah. So while traditional methods give you just the plan and the actual, so our model delivers the accurate prediction and an objective feedback to it. So you can finally close the loop and start planning with confidence and not guesswork. Now, so we talk a little bit deeper on these two stages for here. So on the prediction. Now, here's the challenge. At the prediction stage, the number of staff you think you will need is only as good as the input you base it on. So, and for most businesses today, that input is either footfall or sales. And why is that not good enough? Because footfall is just number of people coming to your store. They're not the actual demand. And a lot of retailer probably say, all right, 20% of my footfall is the demand. So they kind of like set a percentage to it. Yeah. Now, sales is your fulfilled demand. Yeah, you will see the fulfilled demand. But what you really need to be planning around is the actual demand. What is the number of intended buying group? So let me explain. So for example, if you have 1,000 people walk through your store in a day, but only 300 of them showed behavior patterns consistent with a genuine purchase intent, then your real staffing requirement should be based on those 300 and not the 1,000. Yeah, because your total footfall, you have a lot of irrelevant visitor. So otherwise, you're planning to serve the browser and not the buyer. And if you plan to base on sales, then you're planning for the people you successfully serve, not the ones you missed. So that means you're reinforcing your past mistakes without ever actually seeing them. So that's the first failure. You're using the wrong metrics as a foundation of your model. And if the foundation is wrong, every layer that comes after it, your model, your resource allocation, your store performance is just built on sand. Yeah. And this brings us to a larger organizational cost, because if you as the planner cannot explain your rationale with confidence, and if your decisions appears to be based on guesswork or inconsistent signals, then your team morale suffers. Yeah. And you lose trust and your authority weakens. And then meanwhile, the top management is going to start asking a lot of uncomfortable questions. Why we increase the headcount, but where is the sales uplift? Why are our stores still underperforming? What is the ROI on this extra staffing? So all this. Now, without the right metrics, you have no answer. And even the best plan will fails. Yeah, and that is why intended buying group is not just a nice to have metric, it is the missing link in your entire staffing model. So now let's see what's the solution. So at the heart of this, the answer is very clear. You need to plan based on the actual demand. And the only way to truly capture demand is by measuring the intended buying groups, as we mentioned. So let's look at this graph. So on this graph, we're comparing three different planning approaches. So one, you're planning based on footfall. So the footfall plan. So this is not your footfall. This is your prediction of the number of staff you need, the demand, the prediction of a customer demand based on footfall. So like mentioned just now, a lot of retailers just say they would put a general percentage on. So 30% of my footfall are my demand. And they put that generate on there. So if you're based on footfall, then that's obviously based on how many people come in at what time of the day, and based on that. And it's usually higher than what it really is. And if you're based on your sales, which is the sales that you have already made, then it's usually lower than the actual demand. So what you really want to is we can actually measure the actual demand, which is the ground truth. So by measuring actually on that day, how many people, how other customers are behaving and all this. So this is planning, and this lighter green line, this is the intent-based AI prediction. So you will see that this is the one that will really be matching your actual demand for that. And this is where you're closing the gap. So the closer you can match a staffing level to the intended buyer demand, the closer you are to the true operational requirement. Yeah. And that's when your model becomes accurate. And that's when your plan are dependable. And that's when your results become repeatable. Yeah. And this accuracy is not hypothetical. It is quantifiable. Yeah. And because every store is different. So even if you have two stores having the same number of footfall, yeah, but one store may have more window shopper and the other have more purposeful buyers. But without measuring the intent and without identifying those buyer groups, you're probably applying a one size fits all rule to very different type of demand. And so this is why the FootfallCam AI model is built, not just to count hits, but to classify intent. And in another webinar here that we had gone through, you can look at this. So you can come into looking at this webinar where we talk about how we tracked shopper path tracking, in analyzing the in-store travel path, their dwell time or their different engagement zone, their bounce pattern. So for example, if they all these kind of metrics we capture, if people come in here, they look at the product here, they touch the product here, they spoke to a member of staff there, and they made a transaction before going. So all this is needed to train the system to tell the difference between a stroller and a buyer. And when you have that level of insight, your planner is empowered. And is not just with a better prediction, but with a credible and consistent model that works across the region, across stores, and across time. And that's the breakthrough. Yeah. So it's not just having more data, but also about having the right data. So now you have a second challenge. When you have no feedback, you have no learning. So you plan your staff, you don't know what happened on that day. You will just, just hope everything goes well as planned, because you don't have a feedback. So when you have no feedback, you can't learn from it. You don't know where you make a mistake, whether or not you're actually planning very good or you plan very badly. So and all that. So that means if you have made a mistake in this week's plan, maybe you're overstaffed, or maybe you lost a big chunk of sales due to the long queue, you will make that same mistake again next week, because you can't. There's no way of feeding back and no way of learning on that. And no one's going to tell you explicitly, because your sales report, the only thing it tells you is what you managed to convert, not what you miss. So this is where the concept of unmet demand becomes very critical. So unmet demand, let's define it clearly. It is the total customer demand minus the fulfilled demand. So for example, that's the unmet demand. So being a long queue, people leaving the queue, that's the unmet demand. So the shopper walk into the store, they have full of the intention to purchase, or the staff are occupied, no one to greet them, they linger, they wait, and they walk away eventually. And that's invisible in the sales report, because and it's real. Yeah. So if you're not tracking these, you're flying blind. Now, of course, no business can serve 100% of all spikes. Every store has its peaks and valley, and you have the unexpected surges, the quiet hours, the regional differences. But with the right data, you can train the system to identify patterns, and you can simulate the trade-offs and find the minimum pain point for the budget you have. Yeah. And this is what modern staff planning should be. No guesswork, not gut feeling, but a statistically optimized system that learns over time. Yeah. So, and if you're measuring them, then you're learning and you can improve on that. So the solution is now, so look at this graph here to tell a little bit more about that. So that's the actual customer demand based on the actual customer behavior that we are seeing, the real intent, how many shoppers actually entered with the potential to buy. It's not just the footfall, it's not just the browser. We are talking about the genuine buying groups. So this is the blue line there. You can see that. Now, then you have your staff capacity. So this is the actual staff that you have planned and they were there. So this is how your team could really, how many customers your team could realistically serve at that moment based on who was on the shift and how busy they were. Yeah. So, but of course, then when your staff is already engaged, then they simply can't serve the next person. Now, then you have the fulfilled demand, which is based on your sales data. So who were actually successfully served and their shopping experience was complete. Now, then the gap between the actual demand and the fulfilled demand limited by the staff capacity is your unmet demand, which is this salmon color area in between the actual demand and the staff capacity on there. So from here, what are you seeing here? So you are seeing the loss opportunity. So for example, this is Monday to Sunday, and on a Sunday morning, you have a lot of unmet demand. So probably people will come in on a Sunday morning, they're intended to buy. But if you're using that level of staffing, you're seeing on a weekday morning is actually overstaffed. So your demand was only just here, which is the blue line here, and that is served by all the staff. So all this demand were fulfilled, and you just have an overcapacity of staff on there. But instead, over the weekday, the hours nearing your closing time, you actually have unmet demand because you don't have enough staff there. So this is going to be allowing you to see where you can optimize. Obviously, there are moments that you are actually doing very well. You plan according to the actual demand and you're able to fulfill all that demand. But other times where, like for example, lunchtime, you thought that you might have a lot of footfall, indeed, maybe, but those are office worker lunch hour. They come here just having a look, but probably not buying. So you are overstaffed over that time, but understaffed the hour just before they go home. So this will then be able to allow you to optimize better, because these losses will never show up in your sales report. They are silent, invisible, but painfully real. So this is where FootfallCam technology can make a difference. So the tracking is not just who entered, but what the intent was, how busy each staff member was at each moment, and we can surface these blind spots. Yeah. And we also know that every business is different. So a quick service restaurant, which is like a fast food chain, they define unmet demand by queue abandonment. A fashion boutique might define it by the loss of a high value engagement, and a museum or an airport terminal, it might just be the wait time exceeding a tolerance level. Yeah. And that's why we customize the logic on how we count the unserved demand, yeah, for each customer. Okay. Now, so let's look at what our app actually looks like, and more importantly, how it helps you. So what we have built is not just a tool, but a well-structured workflow that encapsulates the best practices in staff planning. So we designed specifically for non-technical user. Is intuitive and it doesn't require any specialist training. We will have training, but just an hour or so of kind of training, you'd be sufficient. And is meant to support your existing operations, not to disrupt them. So let's be very, very clear. We're not here to replace your workforce management system. Yeah. So, or any of your staff scheduling system. Instead, we are adding an intelligent level that plugs in to your current system. So you bring AI powered foresight and accountability into your existing workflow. So the first thing we do is we pull in your historical data from your POS system, sales system, your workforce management planning tool. And then our system then runs predictive model. So you can have a quick look on this video there. on there. So it just pulls in. So it's just saying that if it's imbalance, you waste time and you lost sales here. And then how we can put you put in a FootfallCam counter, then it helps you balance your staff costs, like moving one staff from a quiet store to a busy store. Then everyone's happy, and all that. And that's what we do is we actually, you can then go and set your budget or your constrained number of staff you have there. So our system will run the predictive model and slowly adjusting. The AI is going to slowly adjusting, better predicting on all that to batch match the anticipated demand. So from there, your planner can adjust and fine tune the schedule, and using obviously their own operation judgment as well. Yeah. So this then again, then you can then push back into your WFM system. So your existing process can continue over there. So once the week is over, the real power comes in here is that once a week is over, we can actually compare the actual staffing with the ideal level. And then this comes into, like we mentioned just now, completes the loop for that. So by doing this, we identify the unmet demand, the missed opportunity, and what caused the gap. And for that, what is the poor prediction, poor planning, or poor execution? And this learning loop is powered by real metrics and the outcomes. Yeah. So all good, but why was this? This is a very obvious question. Is if this is such a good idea, why hasn't anyone done it before? So the answer is quite simply because it used to be technically impossible. So the moment if we cannot count staff, we cannot count the customer behavior, then you can't see this. Or at the very least, prohibitively expensive because you will need to have coverage in your whole store. So until now, retailers simply just couldn't afford to measure what that actually matters, the number of attended buying group at every hour of the day, and correlate that with fulfillment, who got served and who didn't. Yeah. So you only saw the success stories is when the sales happen. So now when this is invisible, so you're flying blind. But with the combination now with Pro 2, Pro 1, or with this with central with your existing CCTV, we can use the CCTV at a cost from under $1,000. Now it becomes available. Is an enablement for a lot of our retail customers. So this system will allow you to track your staff behavior throughout the day, whether they are at the back room or they're engaged with the shopper. You can observe the shopper interaction by time, group size, demographic, and engagement pattern. You can identify points of frustration where, for example, a customer is circling in your store without help, or the queues are pushing people out of the door. So this is how you can now accurately measure this actual number of intended buying groups at this cost. So you now have all this prediction on there. We have a webinar that talk about that. So if you want to look at this webinar, that's the link here. That's where we are measuring if if some customers were just looking around, they're actually intending to buy. So they clearly need someone there to help them, to guide them to make a decision, and they will buy, or compared to someone who has actually just gone there, stay there for a few seconds and then left the store. So you can then measure all this for that. So and also about the different how the price has gone down, combining with the use of our sister device or your existing CCTV, it now makes a very wide coverage of your whole store at a very reasonable price. So it's making it possible. And the next reason is why FootfallCam. So we're going to talk about why we are uniquely positioned to deliver this solution. So beyond just the cost advantage, as we mentioned, in the rich feature set, so at the core of it all is the data. FootfallCam system is designed to collect a comprehensive and purpose-built data set, tailored specifically for retail. we're not just counting heads, we are gathering all this, your demographics, who your shoppers are, how old are they, their age and gender, their walk path, where they move, how long they linger, and your staff movement pattern, how your team behaves on the floor, how much interaction they have with your customer. All of this timestamped with the weather, any marketing event you have, your any location specific nuance. So all these are the foundational data set that gives us the raw data to derive the advanced metrics, such as the intended buying buyer provenance. So for example, let me give you an example. So you see a young lady just now, as I mentioned in the video there, you see a young lady walking around in the store, staying for several minutes, revisiting a section. Now that's an intended buyer. He's just can't decide and she needs to be served. Now, compared to another one, as I mentioned, those are just in the door for a few seconds, lingering here, and then they walk straight out. That is footfall, but you don't want to plan staffing for that scenario. So this base layer is still movement, who walk where, when, and how long. But from that, we generate the real insights about their intent, their engagement, and what kind of service capacity is truly needed at each moment. And on top of that foundational data set is our AI engine. So this AI engine, everything fits into this engine. The raw metrics that we measured, the roster plans that you create from your WFM, the queues that we detect, the unmet demands we quantify, and the actual performance versus the predicted outcome. So all this AI, you fits into it and it closes the feedback loop. And every week the model gets better, more accurate, more aligned to reality, and better prediction. And this is what drives the actionable plans, and which is your staff planning. So to sum it up, why FootfallCam is because we provide a complete, granular, and retail specific data layer about your customers and staff, and an AI engine that transform that data into a continuous improvement. So closing the gap between what you plan and what you actually need. So that's the intelligence layer on top of your existing system. Yeah. So now let's walk through how we approach staff planning for next week using our app. So for example, here. So this is how it works. We'll start by importing your existing plan. So your existing plan, you will have all your, if we look at it here a little bit. So these are all the metrics definition we have. So you can look at it here. We have lots of metrics that we have. So now let's look at this. You import your existing plan. You have all your member of staff there, they are constrained, which hours they can do, which hour they cannot do. You have all that. You import it here, and you have your plan number of staff, and you have then compare it with the ideal staff count on there. So it then gives you like, you have the prediction on there. So you compare side by side. We show you the AI suggested roster and your predicted staff numbers based on your actual forecasted demand. So it's not just footfall or historical sales. This demand is from the intended buying groups. Now, here's the key difference. Now, we don't just replace your plan. You are still in control. So we have our suggestion. You have your predicted. You have then your own schedule count, and we give you an instant visual feedback on the supply-demand alignment. So the closer you plan your staffing matches the AI suggested curve, the more confident you can be that you are adequately covering peak demand periods without overstaffing at the quiet time. And the further you deviate from the AI suggestion, of course, the more risk you take on. Yeah, the risk of unmet demand and lost sales, or the risk of wasted staff hour. So think of it as keeping fit. You have a target line and you're trying to adjust your routine to stay close to it. So the workplace will give you a visually track your alignment and see what is the implication instantly. If you deviate from it, what's the implication on there? So you can look at it that way. So here as well, it's just telling you what kind of demand or the group is from there, and what's the predicted sales you could have, and then comparing when is your staff, your most ideal staff to shopper ratio before it drops, and your predicted outcome comparison, your current plan roster compared with the AI predicted staff roster. what is the gap? So your predicted staff roster would increase your expected sales, reduce your labor costs, increase your labor ROI, and reduce your misengagement index, and which hour of which day. When you have a matched, when you're overstaffed, when you're understaffed. Yeah. So things like this, and you can look. Now then, the next step is move on to the review stage where we close the loop and learn from what actually happened. So you have taken so far is you have predicted the demand, you plan the staff accordingly, and then the store executed that plan. And then now we ask, how close did we get to what was actually needed? Yeah, was the staff planning successful? So this is where the concept of the ideal, sorry, that would be this one, the post-operational review. This is where the concept of the ideal staff number comes in. So it is retrospectively calculated, your ideal staff to shopper ratio. So it's here. Yeah. So it is calculating based on that actual day, the actual number of intended buying group who actually came into your store, and the level of unmet demand and the real world constraints that happened during that week. So this is data driven, not just gut feeling. It's a hindsight based metric, but it's our way of saying, if knowing what we now know, what would have been the right number of staff. Yeah. And with this, it actually feed back to the prediction engine to give you better prediction in the future. So we identify the gaps and we ask the why. So for example, if that's your ideal staff count, and you're going to see where you have a biggest gap for that and so forth, and how many hours that you missed, how many sales that you have missed, and when that gap happen between your ideal and your actual staff number on there. Because sometimes you do have a lot of sometimes you couldn't follow the AI guidance completely due to a lot of constraints, staff availability, your labor law, your shift conflicts, and all those things. So maybe you actually didn't override it. You planned for someone and he couldn't show up, call in sick and all that. So so the manager will have to reassign and all that. So taking into all that account, you feed back into the AI engine to give you better prediction next time for that. Yeah. Now that's store level. You can even go into zone-based level. So for example, maybe your whole store level on an average was fine, but that zone particularly was really understaffed for that afternoon because of something. Yeah. So in that zone, why is it understaffed? Is because it needs a special skill. Is a skill-based worker that was not there. So your normal worker who can do your cashiering and stocking, restocking, they can't serve the customer there because they don't know how to operate that machine, for example. So these are then, you can then also go into a zone-based review on there. Now let us move on to look at some real case example. First example is a hardware chain. They are a national in Europe. It's a national hardware chain, and they have very big store, and they are using most of the CCTV with our Centroid, and there's no upfront fee for this arrangement, and they only have a monthly license fee subscription cost of $168. So with this price is very affordable, very reasonable, and look at what we can achieve with that. Of course, they get their footfall, they get their insights about their customer paths, customer tracking, their staff behavior and all that. On top of that is this staff planning tool, and they integrate it with their Reflexis WFM. And so we enable all the zone-based demand and all that. So what is the impact is that it can give an intelligent redistribution of staff, aligned to the real-time shopper heat map. So maybe now suddenly you have a lot of people here. So staff from this redeploy to there to serve customer and so forth. And you can quantify all this conversion. There's a case study here that you can look into here a little bit more. So what we did for them is we built the zone-based customer heat map, and we segregate the shopper versus the staff footfall using the behavior and pathing patterns. So we map the staff presence per zone, and we introduce the unmet demand index. So what we were able to do is we can measure, before and after this change, the sales conversion rate actually increased. And the average queue wait time, we also do queue counting, reduced by 40%. And the restocking time conflict reduced really drastically, because now their staff know what should they be doing. So they shouldn't be doing restocking when there's customer lingering in zone B, for example. But if there's no customer there, equally, they shouldn't be idle in zone B. They should come back to do the restocking. So it makes it very very efficient for the staff, and the staff like it too. Just tell me what I need to do, and then they do it. Meeting the KPIs much more easier than that. Of course, then it reduce all this. One more other thing for this is also for their zone, because they're zone based. For example, in the paint area, there is a customized paint machine, and that needs a special skill worker. So the general worker that can do cashiering and restocking, they cannot operate that paint machine. And they found that weekday mid-morning is when all those builders, trade accounts, decorators that come in to do a customized paint, they need a customized paint pot because they have just gone to their customers' home, and they're now needing to come out to get this paint in this shade and then go back to continue finishing the job. And no one hardly ever customize a paint over the weekend. So now they are able to then reposition the shift of those workers for that paint machine accordingly. Yeah, so that's what they're seeing. Now, a second example is a fast food restaurant. So their requirement is, and what they're seeing is a faster table turnaround. That is important, because if you still have lots of your trays with your burger wrapper and all that on there, then you are customers are not happy because they can't sit down on there, even though their table is empty. So a faster table turnaround, reduce queue abandonment over here, and add a very simple layout with 1 Pro 2 and 3 Pro 1, and also integrating with the existing CCTV camera at the cost of this whole complete system. And we deploy the queue analytics and unmet demand modeling for them, and the impact, of course, then is reducing wait time, increasing customer satisfaction, of course, then reduce the queue abandonment, and increase the order throughput during peak hours, which is the most important time for that. And that's a case study here. So what we did that was the visibility on the queue length and abandoned customer and the table turnover for that. So on there, we reduced their order queue abandonment by more than half. This is very successful on there. The turnover, the table turnaround time for lunchtime has significantly reduced, and customer wait time also all this reduced for that. And of course, then their forecast accuracy also increased 70% on those. Let's look at one last one, is a fashion store. It's a bigger fashion store, more luxury type, so a more high ticket price for that. They needed a segmented shopper intent. Because you're going to have some people who come in here, just browse and go, but you equally have those VIP customers. They are underserved. So the staff really need to know who to serve so do you want to optimize the staff presence on there. And this one, again, similar to hardware store, we don't even need to install a separate device on the shop floor. We are reusing all the CCTV they already have with our Centroid 48, and again at that monthly cost. for that. So what we have achieved was on there, we use the Centroid AI. So we map the staff availability to the shopper engagement. And we flag the period of unmet demands to them in real time as well. So again, obviously resulted in an increase in sales conversion rate, and the unserved high intent visitor, we reduced that by a lot. And all these other different metrics as well. So now all this, again, as we mentioned, we're going to walk through how all of this fits into your existing ecosystem. Because the last thing we want is to disrupt what is already working. We are not replacing your existing WFM system. Well, we're not here to take over your roster planning platform. So whether it is Reflexes, Prognos, Chronos, Blue Yonder, or anything else, instead we're adding an intelligent layer on top of it. So since you, and a lot of times since you already have FootfallCam sensors installed, we are collecting a rich stream of data already. So everything from your customer movement to the queue build up, staff activity, intended buying behavior, and all that. And also including all your other sales data, weather, third-party weather data, your marketing event data, calendar, your staff plan, all those, we're adding it on top. And all this data flows into the FootfallCam V9, and we have a suite of AI models there that are purpose-built apps and all the specialist metrics as well. And then through API integration, we sync it directly with your WFM. We already support seamless integration with leading providers like I mentioned, Reflexes, Chronos, SAP, and others as well. Yeah. So, and with all this data and the context, the AI engine will learn, it evaluates what work, and we output all this. And again, as we mentioned, we can integrate it into there, or on our own dashboard and also onto your BI tools as well. So this is tightly integrated, is an enterprise grade intelligence layer. Yeah, so that you can give you a specialist data that you have never had before, and improves your ability to plan accurately, and provides a structured way also to review effectively, and feeds all that back into the system to constantly refine your model. So it is proven. It is lightweight, as you can see. You don't really need to reinstall that, install the whole big heavy system. And importantly, is it works seamlessly alongside your existing platform. So now that we've gone through the concept, the technology, and the real operational use case, the next question is, what should you do next? For many of you, your retail group may already have FootfallCam installed in some capacity. You might be using it for people counting or for queue monitoring or even in pilot stores. And that's a great starting point already. So to truly evaluate the benefit of this staff planning app, whether it actually works in your own environment, we suggest that you do what a lot of our enterprise clients are doing is a structured A/B testing. Yeah. So you can take 5 store and you run your operation as you usually would. You're using your existing planning process, and you take another 5 store that probably just started a pilot with FootfallCam device, and you use the FootfallCam staff planning app on them, and keeping everything else the same WFM platform, same sales target, same staff pool, and you just compare the difference. So you just compare it with the staff planning app and without the staff planning app, and you just compare and you see if there's actually a difference. And then after a few weeks, you swap them. Those that are not using, now you use it. Those that are not using, those that were using the app now don't use it. So you just do a swap, and again, you evaluate, and you can then see the results. You can see it for yourself, and whether or not it works truly in a real world case. We will assign a consultant to work with you directly on this so that we can help you get the test set up. We can walk your teams through how to use the system, configure the workflow, and interpret the results. So this is not a long-winded hypothetical process. It is a fast, hands-on, and measurable. And at the end of the pilot, you'll be able to answer one question confidently: did this help us convert more sales with the same number of staff? Yeah, and that's a real value. We're here to help you to prove it. Now, the next upcoming webinar, so the next one in this series, we will shift to focus on another high impact application, the Sales Tracker app. So this app is built on the same foundation of rich behavioral data that FootfallCam collects from your store. So like, again, your shopper path, your staff movement, your shopper demographics, and all this, again, at different times of the day. So it's not just about heat map and reports anymore. It's about an AI-powered simulation to learn from millions of these historical interaction. And from that, we can actually predict what's going to happen in the next few hours. So you can set your sales target and see whether or not you actually meet the target. What we want to introduce is also a sales companion app that you actually put it in your shop floor for your store staff to look at. And this is in real time. And this is where we're actually pushing intelligence directly to the store staff. We're going to tell them in the next 3 hours, 50 shoppers are expected to come in, and 30 of them will be casual browsers. 10 of them are likely to be the older couples who tend to convert well on this particular product type. And you will have 3 to 5 young couples who are typically interested in this display section. So now suddenly your sales team in the store is not just going to justify what happened yesterday, why did we not do well, or why we did well. Now your sales team can anticipate. So they can reposition themselves to focus on the right display. They tailor their approach, not reactively, not when the customer come in. They can predictively anticipate who's going to come in the next few hours. And this is not just theory. We're not just telling you this is the wish list or this is the night, the dream. This is actually trial and tested and is working because we've seen measurable uplift in sales conversion by simply telling your frontline staff who is going to come, what they're likely to want, and how is best to engage them. Yeah. So for example, if I look at a little bit here, so we're going to tell you, okay, the family groups, you're going to have 30% coming in as a family groups in the next 3 hours. And when they're in store, offer more small giveaway or the QR games to keep the kids engaged. Or you want to restock the multi-buy items, so commonly bought by the parents in bulk. So your staff actually going to say, okay, family groups coming in the next 3 hours, let us get out all this stock and put it out there in our bargain tray or just next to the cashier. Yeah. So these are things that are empowering the front line. So is transforming heat map and pathing data into real-time actionable instructions. And it shows how when you use the metrics we have been gathering, it can turn into prescriptive action. So this is very interesting. This is what we'll deep dive into the next session. Yeah. So don't miss it. Okay. So these are also some of our other upcoming webinars as well. So do join us for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Melissa, for the insightful presentation. We have covered some great points today, and I'm sure our audience have a lot of questions. I can see in the chat we already have received some great questions. We will now move on the Q&A section.
Okay. Right. So we have one question. What proof do you have that this improves ROI? Yes. So our case studies have actually showed 3 to 7% uplift in sales and 8 to 15% labor cost optimization across retail chains that implemented our recommendations. So we have many case studies, different type of retailers as well. So this really is not theoretical. By analyzing unmet demand, queue lengths, importantly, yeah, and the misengagements, we optimize the staff exactly when and where they matter. So we encourage you, as I mentioned just now, the A/B testing, and that's how you can really see. And in as little as 4 weeks, we'll say give it 2 to 4 weeks, you can see the measurable detail. You can see the measurable deltas between the AI optimized roster and your baseline. You can measure it. Yeah, you can validate that. A second question, why should I trust your footfall-based model over my sales-based WFM? Now, as we mentioned many times, because sales only tell you what was captured, what you have successfully fulfilled, but not what was missed. And a lot of time, a lot of retailer know as your footfall increase, when you go to peak hour, your sales conversion actually drops. And that's a fact anyway. So you know your sales data is not telling you everything. So our model identifies the unmet demand, your queues, the customers walk away or couldn't find a staff member, which traditional systems ignore. So sales-based planning, it optimizes past behavior. Footfall-based and intent-based modeling will anticipate the true shopper demand, allowing you to proactively serve and convert. Third question, how accurate is your AI model? Can we trust its recommendation? Now, we track prediction error on every output, and we retrain the model continuously using your own data. Yeah. So the AI suggests actions with quantified confidence levels and explains the rationale. It's not a black box. So we log and compare the predicted versus the actual impact. We actually tell you this was the predicted and this was the actually happened on that day. Realistically, you probably will see at the beginning, the AI model is indeed not as accurate as we want it to be. But over time, because this feedback loop, the AI model is going to be more and more accurate. And the very important thing here you want to know is not like ChatGPT is using a generic model. We are not using any industry benchmark, which are vague, which are just not very relevant to your store, not even relevant to your retail type, and certainly not into the individual store. Even between your own chain, your different store should have a different a model, well, with a different data set, to be trained. So this is very accurate, and it's trained by your own store data, your own local store data there. Okay, next question. Can this integrate with my existing WFM and BI tools? Yes, as we mentioned, our system is built to export data into any WFM. As we mentioned, the Chronos, Reflexes, Odoo, and also import roster plans from them and attendance logs as well from them. So likewise, our KPIs and insights can also be exported to BI tools, Power BI, Tableau. We already have connectors in them already, or any of your central dashboards. So we are not replacing any of those, and we're not developing any of those software. We are more enhancing your current stack with intelligence that they don't have. Next question, how long does it take to deploy and see results? So initial rollout will take 1 to 2 weeks per store cluster, with early dashboard running in the first few days. We typically recommend a A/B test across 10 to 20 stores or 5 to 10 stores for 4 weeks. So during which you will see the cost versus coverage impact, your conversion data, your queue improvement, your ROI versus control group. So you can get a full report with the exact savings and uplift. Yeah. So the next question, what happens if your data is wrong or incomplete? We agree. Data accuracy matters, but what matters more is consistency. So our AI doesn't assume perfection. It learns patterns from consistent inputs and optimizes based on observed outcome. So even if data isn't 100% complete, the model adjusts for anomalies and it will keep improving through the feedback. Next question. Can my team override your AI recommendations? Now, absolutely. Our system presents an AI suggested plan alongside with your original plan. So like I showed you just now, so with clear explanation and the KPIs, but you stay in control. You can choose to adapt, you can choose to override, and you can then see sometimes you're better, sometimes AI is better. So you think of the AI as your highly trained assistant, not a replacement. Yeah. Next question, how do I know this will work for my industry segment? So we have seen consistent success in fast fashion and apparel, so fashion industry, electronics retail, hardware store, QSR or fast food chain, and those big box supermarket formats as well. So we do tailor the model based on the different store type, shopper behavior, different industry, the product interaction patterns and conversion benchmarks, all this that are specific for your vertical. Next question, what are the minimum requirements to get started? At least one FootfallCam Pro 2 or a compatible sensor per entrance and the key zones. So sales logs as well, that would be useful per day, per hour, even better for accuracy. And your basic staff attendance or your WFM export. This is optional, but it helps with the post analysis, yeah, your WFM export. You don't need to overhaul the system. We can start small and scale. You can scale very fast based on the performance. So let's do our last question. Why now? What makes this different from all the other AI tools out there? Because this is not just AI for AI's sake. It is an ROI first, use case driven, and built on real footfall and staff activity data that you already collect, or you can start with a minimal cost. Is different because it shows your missed opportunity. No other tool can quantify at the moment. Yeah, and it's not using a vague industry benchmark, as I mentioned, is using your own store actual data, and it gives actionable next steps, not just an insight, not just good to know, oh, I have that many customer come in. Is actually telling you what you should do next, and it proves itself in weeks, not months. So we'll just encourage you to try it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Melissa, for that insightful and informative presentation. We have covered some valuable topics today, and we truly appreciate your expertise. A big thank you as well to everyone who joined us for today's workshop. Thanks again for being part of today's session. We look forward to seeing you at our next workshop. Bye.